Hey there, in today's video I am sharing a fairly simple exercise drawing portraits, and I'm using a reference photo, but I'm doing two at the same time. So I have my art journal open and I sketch out one and then I sketch out another in two different ways. I'm using an extremely limited, in my opinion, extremely limited palette, and just kind of going back and forth between the two. I'm setting a time limit for myself, although I'm not exactly sure what that time limit was. I'm pretty sure I did the whole thing in about 20 or 30 minutes. I am going to show it to you mostly in fast forward. I'm going to explain a few things, but this is more of an exercise to help you loosen up when you're doing your portraits, because it's so easy, and myself included, to just overwork them or try too hard or make it more than it needs to be, particularly when you're just practicing. And so I'm working on top of collage and in my art journal where I could do this practice over and over again. But recently I've been doing two side by side instead of just one at a time, because I think it helps take us out of it a little bit when there's more than one that we're doing. And it's like, oh, I can focus on this. Oh, I got to add that color over here, and going back and forth on the two sides of the page right at the same time. So I hope that you give this exercise a try and that it helps boost your confidence in making portraits, because I think they can be really fun. You can use your favorite colors and just do it in a very short time frame so that they don't become overworked, and that it takes on that whole, it's shedding that perfectionist tendency that we all have, that we want it to be a certain way. It's like, oh, I actually like it better when it's a little rougher and a little bit more raw. At least in my case, I do. And I have a tendency to go too far. So anyway, I hope that you do give this a try. And without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I do is look for a page in my art journal that has collage or some kind of paint on it. I typically would not choose this page. You could, for sure. But it's just, I would rather work on top of this, but even more, this is just paint, so, and that's not super textured. More, I like to work on top of collage papers that have been put down. That's just a crazy background, because it also takes the pressure out of making it perfect. And again, like I've talked about so many times, there is no way it's going to be perfect, but I think often when we start doing anything, we think, oh, it's got to be a beautiful outcome, or it's got to be this and that. Well, I'm telling you right now, if you start with a bunch of collage papers down, all these edges and all these different things will factor in, and you will not have a perfect rendering of pretty much anything you do. And it will have these really cool textures and marks in them, which to me makes it more unique and more interesting. So it's personal preference. Start like this, or you could start like this. So the other thing that I would recommend is I'm going to be using this Peel and Sketch charcoal pencil. It's kind of got a wider tip to it. I don't know if it actually, I don't know what that is, a 1.0. I don't know. It's just the way they come. But I would say instead of using a pencil, with its small tip, to get, it perfect, again, we're trying to take away all the perfection, right? So this is going to not let me get these perfect marks. It's going to be big and kind of bulky. You could also use like one of these Lyra pencils that's really big and chunky, but just to get the basics down. We're not trying to get a perfect rendering again. You could also use like a Stabilo Woody, and you could use any color. I just grab black, and also get your basic shape and image down. And I've mentioned this before, I'm not that great at sketching, but I do want to just get the shape and the idea of the face and maybe some of the proportions in, which may or may not be accurate, but it will give me a starting place. So I think sometimes there's this fear around beginning and I can't do it, and I get that, but I think sometimes that can hold us back from actually just doing it, and who cares, because it's in an art journal. I can close the page, I can actually paint over it. No one ever has to see it, and it really doesn't matter. So I would encourage you to not overthink this, but just grab a few things and get started. So I have a reference photo off to the side. I don't think it's important actually to show you, because I'm not looking for a perfect rendering of this. I am just starting in two different ways, and this is typically what I do when I do a two-page of the same image. One, I will start maybe with the eye, and maybe one I start with the nose or the lips. So they end up being like these sister images that look similar kind of, but are completely different, because based on where I start, how it ends up. And I've been doing this for a while now, and it's really fun to see the result. It's like, oh my gosh, when I step back, they look the same but different, or similar but different. And sometimes they don't really look that similar, other than I've used the same materials, and so there is that cohesiveness. So I'm gonna stop jibber-jabbering here and just get started. So on this one, first one, I think I'm going to start, and of course it's always hard to get started, and especially on camera. I'm gonna start with her eyes. So, and again, I'm kind of holding the charcoal back a little bit looser, and I can adapt and change these. I'm trying not to have it be as perfect. I could do a drawing not lifting the pencil, but I'm not actually going to do that at this point. So I'm just trying to get some of the basic features in, and starting in as loose as I can manner. So let's get the lips in here, and there we go. We got her basic face structure in. Let's just bring some of this down. That might be too deep of a chin for her, but that's okay. That's okay. We're just going to kind of give her a basic. I'm basically trying to look a little bit off my, it looks like I put an ear up there, but that wasn't really, I think it's, I'm not sure, a little bumpy there. So let's put an ear here, and then she actually has an earring, which I think is kind of fun to include some of these details, which may or may not get lost. Her hair comes, well, okay, so then her neck is here, and that's probably a little long. But again, I'm not looking to make some kind of perfect image here. So let's say that, okay. All right, so there's the basics. Her hair comes to about here, and it's fairly straight lined. But yeah, depending on your image. Let's see. And I'm kind of doing this, usually I like to be a little more sketchy and a little looser, and then it kind of puffs up here like that. And the hair is much wider on this side. I do often like images that the hair is really crazy. I don't know, some of my paintings have that. So there's your basic outline. We can do with it as we wish and make it different. I typically, almost always, the eyes are just too wide set. I don't know what that is, but so I would have to bring her eye in a little bit here, and her bangs do cover that. Okay, and I'm pulling up my collage paper, which is okay. It'll just leave me a big hole right there. Okay, so maybe it's not quite dry because I did this a while ago, but anyway, who knows? Maybe sometimes they don't get stuck down correctly. So I'm going to do the other side. I'm not going to talk you through it since I did talk you through this one. I just kind of wanted to show you or talk with you how I did this. And this other one, I'm going to start with maybe I'll start with the mouth and then go from there. And so, because I don't want to do the same, I don't want to start the same way with both of them. So, okay, I'm going to start on this side, and I will just fast forward that. Okay, I have my two sketches in, very basic, not any details on them. I grabbed a bunch of brushes, and I'm gonna say, because this is not the largest of sketchbooks, maybe it's, I don't know, 8 by 10, I don't know what size this is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The biggest paintbrush I'm using, and I would recommend going bigger rather than smaller, but to get in here, is a 3/4 inch wash. And then I have 1/2 inch, and I have some random smaller ones. I do have all my paintbrushes off to the side. I could grab those if I wanted, but I do tend to use smaller brushes, and you won't see me using brushes. Let me grab a really small one. Like a tiny little, this is like a number 8. I just don't use these tiny brushes very often. Sometimes I guess I would get in there, but I find I get really tight when I start using that type of a small brush. So I have a bin of small brushes that are not used very much. I tend to try to use the biggest brush possible, and it gives me kind of a different result. So I have all my brushes. I have a catalyst wedge. I have a palette knife. The colors I'm using, I'm keeping really limited, and I can always grab something else if I want. I just have a raw umber, a raw sienna, and an indigo blue, all Liquitex, and then white. So I definitely could bring something else in if I want, but I like to keep it simple, and I feel like you can mix up a lot of colors just with what you have. So we're gonna get started. I probably am just going to fast forward. Nothing that I'm doing is tricky. I'm just gonna be painting. I'm gonna just work from side to side so you can watch that process. And if I am gonna do something, unique, I will try to pause it, or I will tell you what's going on. So we're just gonna get started and see what happens. Okay, although I said I wasn't going to really be talking, at the beginning I wanted to just share a few things. Typically what I do, I may not start mixing colors right out of the gate, is I go in with the largest brush and I just go over the darks and, close enough. This is not an exact where things are going to go, but it gives me a place to start. And I find that is really helpful just in kind of setting the tone for what I'm going to be doing. And it doesn't mean that it'll be there at the end. So, but anyway, there's some darks here and there. And so where can I add those first with a big brush? So, and on my brushes, I do dip in water prior to using them. So, okay. So just something like that. I'm just going to start usually with my bigger brush in the darkest color, and then I'll lighten this a little bit, and then in the lightest color, just to kind of show you this, how I get started. And honestly, it's as simple as that. And it doesn't look like much right now, and it shouldn't, because I'm just kind of getting some colors in, and the lights and the darks. And I could have used, this ends up being kind of more flesh tone than I really wanted, but it is just a way to kind of take it down a notch. And how easy is that? So there you go. That you could practically be good with something like that. That just kind of gives you your basic. Now, a lot of times what I do at this level is I take my callus wedge and I kind of scrape over it, because I want to make sure I'm not being really precious with that. So I might do this a few times while I'm painting. I didn't put a lot of paint down, so I didn't move around too much, but I find that really helps me stay loose as well. So now I am going to stop talking and I'm just going to keep painting. finished with these paintings. I wanted to tell you about this fan brush that I pulled out that I really like for hair. It didn't show up a whole lot on here, but it makes kind of streaks for hair. I like it for that. But I also wanted you to know I wasn't going for a perfect rendering. I was just trying to do a very loose, and I kind of kept my eye on the clock. I meant to set a timer, as initially I was thinking, oh, let's just do like a 20-minute kind of thing. So the bottom is fairly raw. I kind of like that their tank tops are just the paper, the collage that was left over. And as you can see, I used the same reference photo, but they do look different. And like I said, I started with the eyes and then I started with the mouth. And I did feel like her mouth was off, but I also felt like her mouth was off and the noses were a little off. But again, I feel like it's just a great exercise and gets you in the groove and the mode of doing portraits, and it doesn't have to be perfect. But when you're working on two at the same time, I did find I was having a harder time working on the left-hand side today because I was paying more attention. And I don't know if that's because I'm right-handed, but anyway, it ultimately, I just kind of went back and forth and kind of tried to just get them as close to what I was doing as possible is what I'm trying to say. And then I also brought in this pencil. It's a Pitt graphite matte, and just kind of did some more sketching around when I felt like I was losing the lines. And I did do a few times with the Catalyst wedge. And I probably would have even done more if I wasn't on camera, because I really like what happens and the weird result, like the pulling down of the paint here, those kind of marks that are random that you can't really get any other way. And my tendency is I want to keep pushing this painting, these portraits further, but that's not the objective. It's not to get it exactly right. It's not to have everything perfect. It was just an exercise and a way to practice and to kind of get my eye getting the features in halfway correctly. And I'm like, oh, I want to fix the neck. I want to fix this and that. I want to have this more blend, the neck lighting blended, but that's really, I don't want to push these any further. So I would recommend trying something like this, even if it's on just 2 pieces of paper, and working on 2 or 3 or 4. And I know when I work on my canvases, I work on sometimes 5 at a time, not the same reference photo, but using the same color palette. And it really helps keep me loose because I'm just going from one to the other and continuing to just look for lights and darks. And that's a lot of what I did here. So again, I'm criticizing my ears, all the things, but again, it's just a fun and quick exercise, and I definitely hope you guys give this a try, and I hope this encourages you that because I know a lot of you have commented that, oh, I just can't do a face, I can't do a portrait, you can do this. Trust me, you can. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And for me now, my biggest issue is, I want to push it further than it needs to go. And honestly, I'll look back on this and I'll probably go, oh, I'm so glad I didn't keep refining it, because sometimes it's the rawness and the imperfections that make the painting, portrait, whatever, just have more meaning and not so, stiff, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, okay, I just want to thank you guys all again for watching, and I will see you next time.